hälsa alla som har hoppat på mötet. Välkomna till dagens webbinar med N-able och deras expert Jan här som kommer att prata om deras Cove Data Protection lösning som han har varit med och grundat. Så att det kommer nog bli en hel del information. Och som vanligt har ni frågor och liknande så går det bra att ta det faktiskt under webbinariets gång. Så det är bara att räcka upp handen eller ställa en fråga rakt ut. Det uppskattar Jan så att han kan svara er direkt om det är någonting som ni undrar över. Annars så går det givetvis bra att mejla oss på sales@gridheart.com om det är någonting. Så kan vi följa upp mer efter mötet och absolut såklart även om ni är intresserade av en demo liknande så antingen mejla er kontaktperson direkt på Gridheart alternativt till våran sales@gridheart.com. Sen kommer vi även följa upp givetvis och stämma av intresset efteråt också mer så att ni får den dialogen. Annars så ser vi fram emot här att få lyssna lite mer på Jan här som kommer att som sagt ta oss igenom deras lösning. Så att I leave it over to you with a warm hand, Jan, to take it away from here. And yes, I told everyone that if they have questions, they can just ping you at any time during the
totally
the walkthrough of the solution. So take it away.
Correct. Thank you. We should have more people joining. Welcome.
Yeah, of course. We'll let them in.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for joining today. I'm pleased to see that we have people showing up for our demo for today. My first name is Jan Gerzinus, which is complicated, so that's why we stick with JG in the English language. Feel free to use that if you want to reach out. For today, on the logistics on how we want to do stuff, I have no problem somebody reaching out or speaking up directly into the meeting itself. You don't have to use the chat. Chat's sometimes a bit tough to figure out if you're doing a presentation anyway. But if there's anything not clear or you'd like to get a little bit more information right away, just speak up and we'll pick it up right away. No problem with that. My background, a little bit on me, and then we'll just continue in the software. You can already see the software in your screen, I hope. My background is all in backup as one of the co-founders of the software that you're looking at right now, almost 20 years ago. And I'm still around doing a lot of our frontline, as I call it, work in making sure that our customers and potential new customers do see the power of the system and they can get the maximum out of it. And that's why I also picked today for showing you the real stuff, a real demo of software, how it can work in your environment, how it can create a new business opportunity and how it can make your current backup and restore process a lot better and faster and easier to work with. Instead of a boring PowerPoint with lots of slides that everybody can already see, I've picked the live demo version. And I do know I think that we can go through the system in a decent way so that everybody gets the maximum out of it. All right, let's just kick it off. We're looking here, and I think everybody can see my screen. At least that's the idea, that you now see a web interface. Okay, I see Simon.
Yes, we can see it.
Saying yes, that's good. I hope it's big enough for everybody, but I think this is doable. And we right away have an overview of our Cove Data Protection main dashboard, management dashboard. And
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh.
Bengt, anything you want to ask? Okay, I don't think so. Otherwise, if needed, we can mute people as well, Simon. Huh? Yeah. Then you can unmute yourself if you want. We have an overview here of the estate of your devices. So we have servers, workstations, and documents. I'll explain the difference in that. We have also Microsoft 365 domains and users. So that's how your estate is being built up, and this is talking about how successful or what's the status of the last backups, and this is how recent the backups are. So all of them done in under 24 hours, and you can see the majority is done and some are in process, and I'll explain what it is. Bengt, I was just going to mute you because so it's coming a bit of background noise in. Okay, so that's the quick overview on the top. Then we have a massive grid where you see servers, workstations, and Microsoft 365 tenants. And the nice thing here is that they all report in the same structure. So you can make a combined environment with all of that, all of your backup needs in this case. And we have, as you can see, an enormous amount of columns. Well, this is a limited amount, but we have in the system over 600 different data points for every device. So there's an enormous amount of detail that you can technically get into your system if you want. And I'll dive a bit more into the steps in a few minutes. This is the thing I want to show you right now. This is the color bar for the last 28 days. So this means this is today. This is the day before. So there's 3 dark green lines here next to each other. And then we have 2 light ones for the weekend. So this is last weekend. This is the week before, week before. And this one didn't run 3 weeks ago on a Sunday. Well, you can see that happening on a few other machines. There's the hypervisor it was running on was off on that day. Well, anyway, it can happen, but you can easily tell how successful it runs over these 50 machines and what happened or if it's stable. And not only the last status, but also historically how it runs. The M365 and server workstations have the same reporting structure on statuses and errors and last successful, and all of that is equal. So it's super simple to add that together. On the left side of the screen, we have a big menu structure, and I'll pick the logs version. That's what we call dashboards. I'll show you a few different things. So currently we're looking at the all devices view, but I can also look at the Microsoft 365 backups. And if I click on this one, I hope, by the way, that the refresh goes quickly. I was just in a call where it took like a few seconds to get there, but this is the Microsoft 365 overview. And you see there is no servers and workstations in the donut here, only the tenants. But now I have Exchange and OneDrive and SharePoint and different data points in my view. I didn't have this data point earlier. So I'm getting specific data based on the view that I select. And I can do that also for assets. And if I do assets, then I'm seeing the opposite. Now I only see servers, workstations, and documents. No M365, but now we're talking about the client version and the operating system, and if it's a virtual machine or not, or where the storage runs. Well, you can see asset-related information. So, long story short on these views, what we can do is we can play with that. We can decide our own columns, we can decide our own filters, our own whatever sorting we want. And you can see I've got quite a few views here on the left, and they don't have a lock in front of it, meaning that they are custom views that I created myself. And I'd like to take you through a simple example on a 3-layer service level approach that N-able suggests. And we're talking about the term RPO, and RPO stands for Recovery Point Objective, meaning if something goes wrong, like how big is the gap that you need to go back to from your data point of view. It's not about how fast you can go back, but it's how big the data gap is. So you crash a server at 4 p.m. and you do a backup at midnight. Well, that's serious 16-hour gap. That's the potential gap that you have. So what we do here is we have 20 machines running our basic service level suggestion. We're looking at servers, the majority, and a few workstations. Very important here is our technical approach. If you're used to image backups like Veeam, Altaro, Acronis, those type of current vendors, and I'm not going to say, by the way, they do things wrong, but we do the things different. They went at the beginning, they went left and we went right. That's more how you should see it. We suggest to not back up the image, to not back up through the hypervisor. It's a very important statement we do here right away. And there's a lot of technical stuff behind it, but the very short summary around it is we don't need an image backup to do an image restore. So we will restore all these machines into an image, and I'll show you the full demo of that. Very cool that we can do it, believe me, image backups are not wrong, but they are inefficient. And they're like significantly more inefficient than what we suggest here. So we backup in the operating system, files and folders, system state. You see a server here with SQL. It has other plugins supported as well for Exchange and for MySQL and for other data sources. This is just going to give you a glance of what's possible. The big benefit of this is that we can be super precise and super efficient and fast on your backups. So they currently have a selected size. That's all like how big the machines are and use storage. Nothing to worry about. Technically, you can add archives in the software or have long retention or extended retention. But since this is a layered service level approach, we keep stuff away from the lowest level, obviously, to have opportunity to uplift. So there's no archives in this environment. You can see the color bars here being almost completely green and all completed. So you can imagine the amount of time it takes. If this is your morning, it's super easy to do. No errors. There's a 30-day retention going on this machine and a 24-hour RPO. And the 24-hour RPO is going to show you, I'm just scrolling to the right, you can see the backups run after midnight, AM, 12 AM. This is the number of files that is in the selection. So this is 4.1 million files, 3.8, pretty significant environments. This is the number of files that changed. So thousands of files change in this environment. That's very normal. There's nothing to worry about. But this is what really matters. The send size is only 100 or 75 or 100 megabyte, 400 megabyte. This is a very, very limited amount of data that is being transferred. And why is it limited? Well, because we are running inside the operating system. We can be way more precise in which files we're going to back up by default. And Microsoft already suggests to filter out the page file and the Hibernate and all of that type of stuff. But we can add an extra list on top of that to say, we don't want the antivirus cache files. We don't want the patch management downloads. We don't want all the Google Chrome browser cache stuff. It's just unnecessary and it just frustrates the backup. So we can be very specific in filters, and that's what we did. And then this is the result. And here you can see the backup time in the middle of the night. So what's the average? Probably 8 minutes or so, 7 minutes, something like that. I didn't calculate for today, but something like that. And that is right away the biggest problem as well that most of our customers run into. They're not aware of it. You have one backup per day and it only takes 7 minutes. I think that if that's the case, that you're under-insuring your customers. Because if you sell this as a solution, you are a sort of IT insurance company. You're going to say to the customer, I have you back. If something goes wrong, I can give you a restore. Like the time it takes to restore is not important. If this is 4 o'clock and your server crashes and you need to go back to 12:44 and then you see the backup took 5 minutes and 3 seconds, that's just unfortunate because you have to say to the customer, yeah, sorry, today is gone. We're going back to midnight. And you can then see that it was actually super easy to sell them a better solution. Like technically, you can easily do more backups than once a day. So if I change my view to 4-hour RPO, I'm going to a different set of devices. And these machines have different settings. It's the same software, but just different settings. And I just want to take one quick step back. I want to show you, I can actually launch the software from here. I can right click on a device and I can start. Of course, I'm picking one that's not online right now. I can launch the software. And this is now access to that remote machine. As you can see, I'm running on a Mac. But this is an actual 2016 server. And if I go to backup, you can see that it has files and folders and system state. And my Mac doesn't have system state. So this is not my computer, but it looks, I can get access to it right away. If I go to the restore of this machine, this is the basic service level. I can click on the date and I can get a session here and I can go back into the calendar and you see it just goes back here. So 30 days, super straightforward. That's what it does. Every backup, every day I've got a backup and you tell me. I can open up the tree structure here. I can do a restore. I can do full restore into image. I'll show you that, but it is very simple and straightforward what you do here. But I think it's not good enough. So if we go into 4-hour, and if I start this machine, you see it's the same software. It looks exactly the same, but there are quite a few differences now. If I go to the restore option, then it takes a few seconds. It's going to load the calendar. And today I've got 3 backups. That's nice. Yesterday I've got 6 backups. That's even nicer, obviously. And if I go to the last day of the month, which is the 30th, you can see there is also an A in front of this session, meaning that had an archive stamp, and that session is going to stay around. So this doesn't stop in November. This will go up all the way up till 7th of October. So that's 60 days of sessions, and you see 6 backups per day. So 60 days times 6 is 360 sessions already. But it's also going to keep the last session of the month available. And I can go back till, well, you see the 31st of July 2023, that's available. But I can go back a little bit more. Let's go back all the way. Oh, I misclicked the last one. That's unfortunate. Let's go back all the way to 2019, I would say, because we have that session available as well. Let me just do another go at it. There we are. I click the session, boom, there it is available right away. It's that quick. So building out very decent retention policies with very interesting frequencies, I would say, and 4 hours is still okay, but it's definitely not end of the it's not end of the technology. Gives you the customer a lot better service level. So there's way more value right there for the customer. There's another funny benefit with it. Well, the backups are going to be more recent. That's a very expected outcome, but the send size is significantly smaller now. You see 15 megabytes, 7, 14. That means because you're going to do multiple backups in the day, you're also going to split the changes in the day, meaning that the backups, each backup is just going to be faster and smaller. And well, you can see that here on the time, and this is very fast, and there's not, your customer's not going to complain. Let me tell you that. It's not going to be a problem. You can even go up to 15 minutes, but in this case, we do every hour. And you see that's way more recent, 7 megabytes, 6, 8 to, well, almost nothing, right? So the whole idea of this is that you can do backups in a consistent way. So if it's a workstation, if it's a server, if it's a physical server, virtual server, if it's part of a cluster node, if it runs in Azure or AWS, it doesn't matter. If it runs on Hyper-V or VMware or Nutanix, it doesn't matter. It is a backup for us. It's an installation, and we can do a restore into any format after that. I'll show you the restore, but before I show the restore, I want to quickly touch on the profiles. This is the profile is one of the key things that we set up, that you're gonna lock all the settings in the client. If I go quickly back to my backup manager, if I go to backup in this environment, you can see that the files and folders and system state have been detected by the system, and they are also locked. There is no way to edit this. That's actually a good thing. And if I go to preferences and I want to see how frequent the backup is running, there's a schedule, and it's also locked for every 4 hours. So I can see it, but I can't change it. And that's again a good thing. So the backup profiles are going to set up the standard. So here we're going to say, if you run this on a server, we're going to back up every 24 hours. You can see how easy it is to change. We're backing up everything, and we're not going to back up your Windows Defender and your antivirus cache files. And well, you see a whole list of things here that are available and that you can easily add as a filter. You can also add other stuff. That's totally up to you how you want to work with the filters, but we have some good ideas on how you do that. And you can also dig through your own environment if you want to see what actually changes in your environment and make filters for that. All right. That has been 20 minutes of a lot of data already. We're going to continue on the recovery side of things for sure. But I was just curious before we do that, if there are any, well, remarks, questions, things in the audience that I need to address. So, anyone speak up if you want. Is it all clear? Do you need extra information around this topic?
No, I think it's good so far, at least from my side.
Yeah. Okay, then we're just going to continue. So it starts with a decent and efficient backup, and that's what we discussed. If you get into this situation, you can start working with what we call recovery locations. And a recovery location is A very simple approach. You can say, I want to add a recovery location for Hyper-V or for Azure, and the VMware ESXi environment is going to show up in a few weeks as a third option. So it's going to be here. But if you say Hyper-V and you want to add a recovery location, you can download a 100 megabyte file, install it on a Windows machine, ideally a Hyper-V host if you have that. And that machine then becomes a restore target. So you can assign restore jobs to that machine. But it's super simple to do. If you run with Veeam and you have a Veeam repository running right now, that's a serious job to get it and keep it up and running. This is total different world, I would say. It doesn't require a SQL server as well, and it's a lot easier. So when you have that available, you can decide two things. Or you're going to see in the continuity option here a one-time restore, or what we call a standby image. The technology is the same, but the question is, are you just going to do like once a restore specific because the customer had an issue and we need to do one restore? Or are you going to build out a service that is going to keep the restores going as a continuous process? So the one-time restore, let me do that first. Let's say the customer had a ransomware attack and you figured out only a day or 2 days later, maybe because it was a little bit hidden. So the last backup is not the one that you want because maybe that was already infected. So you need to go to a certain point. So you say, I want to do a one-time restore into a Hyper-V host. Maybe the Hyper-V host from the customer, maybe something that you do. Maybe the whole environment blew up and you need to do this in Azure. I'll show you that as well. But let's first start with Hyper-V. If I need to select the target that I want to restore to, which is simple. And I'm getting a list of all my devices that are available for the restores, which is a lot of them. And let me pick one machine here. This is the machine that went down. The question is, which session do you want to get back? And now you see it's going to load the sessions. It's going to take a few seconds and it's going to present me with the sessions that are available. So that's up to me to make a decision in which session I want. And there you go. So maybe it was Monday and you see every 4 hours a backup run. So I've got 6 sessions available. If you know it happened, it happened after lunch. So this backup should be fine. You can pick that one to restore. Now it's up to you because you selected Hyper-V. Now it's the question how you want to get it back. Shall we restore it directly into the Hyper-V host? Or do you want to just get it back as a VHDX file and giving you, well, whatever you want to do with it? If you select Hyper-V, you can go into optional settings. And here you can create extra settings that we will, how we will restore this machine. There is an option to do the operating system disk only. If this is a 10 terabyte file server, it's going to take a while to do a restore. Like even if you have the fastest internet, whatever, it's going to take a while. If you do this one, it's only going to restore your 100 gigabyte C drive. And then it will give you, you can then boot that machine, go in the machine, create an empty D drive and just restore the files that you specifically want for today. So there are ways to do these, even these massive restores a lot quicker over internet. You can assign the amount of cores that the virtual machine will get, the amount of gigabytes that the RAM that it gets. You can enter a virtual switch and all the IP settings. If there's a lot of machines, you can apply this to all the devices and it will then increment by 1. So that's also a nice functionality. And this will, if I click on next and if I say skip this step, if I do confirm, it's going to do a restore from the 4th of December after lunch. Into the HV15, which is a Hyper-V host that will do this restore. And that's it. And that's going to be a quick restore. It depends a bit on how fast the machine is, but we've seen restores happening from scratch into a virtual machine that works around 15 minutes. And that's fast. If you never prepared anything, I can't say it's guaranteed in 15 minutes, but we've seen it happening like that. I can do the same one-time restore, but then into Azure. And that means that you can do a restore. Let's say the customer says, my whole site blew up, is on fire, whatever, flooding, I don't know, power outage, something serious happened, and you need to continue somewhere else. So you can introduce the whole concept of spare hardware, but maybe you don't want that. Maybe you just want to get them into an Azure tenant. If the customer has an Azure tenant, you can easily create an empty virtual machine, a new machine, and configure that as a recovery location. So that machine in the tenant is going to act as a proxy. That's what we did already. So you get a different list of devices. I can go next. I get the same list of machines again. So let me pick one that's a bit close. Yeah, this one is okay. I can pick a session again. It's all the same. The software has the same user interface. Now I need to connect to Microsoft. And if I do that, it's going to load credentials and the settings based on the recovery location that was installed. So here I can select a resource group. If I have many, I can change the computer name. I can change the availability options. I have to decide on the VM size. This is not something that we by default do. So you decide, I want a D2IS V5. The operating system type, like, do you want standard cheap disk or do you want to do like expensive disks? It's up to you. You can do Ultra SSD for data even. You decide on the virtual network based again on the recovery location settings. It will detect this, the subnet, and you click next and you say skip, and you say confirm, and it's going to start doing the restore right away into that tenant as a native Azure VM. There's no tricks around nested hypervisors or so. This is going to be a proper Azure VM. No discussion. Like, this is totally what customers are going to expect from it. We do see this happening as well as a conversion tool, which is not really the purpose of the software, but the customers say, oh yeah, that's nice. I can now get my machines easily into Azure. Well, yes. So that's the one-time restore. It's up to you to decide what you want, which session do you want, and where do you want to get it to. And the ESX locations are going to follow very quickly. You can also decide on standby image. And if you do standby image, it's going to do almost the same. I'll show you that. You can add the plan. I can do, again, Hyper-V or Azure. I can select the same type of location. It's the same software. I can select a machine. I have a few machines left that I can choose from here. That is on purpose. And here I cannot select a session. I can see that the restore is going to happen after every backup sessions. So if the backup runs every hour, the restore is also going to run every hour. It doesn't boot automatically in the same frequency. You can set it to also show, to go through the boot process and to show and wait for the startup screen, make a screenshot and then turn it off so that we can prove to you that it was not only restored, but it's also bootable, and it actually did boot. But if you do hourly backups, you probably don't really need to show every hour that it boots, right? If you do this on a daily or weekly base, probably good enough. And again, same settings, same type of things here. That's all standard. The difference here is that it's going to do it all the time versus one specific session. But this is a very cool functionality to build out a recovery location site. Like, you can offer the customer a secondary site where you say, well, your backup is happening directly from your on-premise to the cloud, and we have a third location where we're going to do an automatic recovery that in case something goes wrong, you can just continue working. And technically, you can also do this into Azure. You can also say standby image into Azure, which is the same technology, but then it's going to do it into an Azure tenant. But the cost of this, not from an N-able point of view from Cove, but from Microsoft, is going to be more significant because you're going to keep machines on, or you're going to change it and have disk usage, and it's just going to be more expensive. But we want to offer you the technology in a broad spectrum. And again, it starts with an efficient backup in the operating system. It doesn't matter where that machine runs. And we will make sure that the backups are super efficient and very effective directly into the cloud, with the option to do recovery one time or completely automatic into any environment that you want almost. And that is that's one of the key the key processes around this software. And that means that you can offer this to a single small company with one workstation that just runs the machine in the night when they do a little bit of the accounting after they were out for a day of work, up till customers that have 50 servers in a high availability environment that want to do a complete recovery into a different site all the time, and anything in the middle. So this will give you one tool to have a very broad approach into the backup and recovery market, specifically for your servers and workstations. And the Microsoft 365 I'm going to talk about, but I just want to make sure that we do this this topic first.
KG, I was about to ask regarding the Microsoft 365 granularity, how easy it is to actually restore, for example, from a Teams chat or from the Outlook or whatever it might be, right? So
yeah, totally.
And you're getting there, I guess.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, well, totally. Like we're only like how much time did we book for the meeting? More than 30
I think
minutes,
we have at least. Yeah, I think we have at least 45 minutes, and then obviously if there are any questions at the end, then a small Q&A session.
Super. Well, yeah, this is like a half-hour demo of how we think you can run the software on servers, workstations, physical, virtual, whatever, on-premise, in the cloud, it doesn't matter. Make a smart backup and give you all the restore capabilities that you want. So that's what this is. If anyone has any questions, well, we can also leave them for Q&A, whatever you want. But that's what it is. And this is real stuff. This is not concept stuff. This is real stuff that works right now. So important to know. Okay, Microsoft 365 backups. Let's continue with that topic. It's a whole different line of business, actually. Yeah, it doesn't work on-premise machines anymore, but it's a cloud-to-cloud backup. Our environment that we manage in our cloud, which is not running in Microsoft environments at all, is connecting to the Microsoft API, making sure that the data in Microsoft environments is being downloaded and backed up into an environment that's completely separate from that. And restorable as well. So if you click on add a device, you can add a server or a workstation, or choose to say, I want to add a Microsoft 365 tenant. And if you do this, you can decide, as it is completely multi-tenant, it's made multi-tenant the whole environment from the ground up 20 years ago already, by the way, still going on. You decide with which customer you want to assign the tenant to. You enter the tenant name, you give the standard acknowledgement. And if you say next, it's going to connect in a Microsoft environment. I'll show you how that looks, but I think everybody's aware of that. And after that, you can select your users, your sites, your teams, and the summary on what's going to happen. And that's going to look very similar to what I'm going to show you right now. That's this. So this is how this is what you can expect when entering a new tenant in the system. The system is going to read all the users, and we're going to suggest to back up all the Exchange and OneDrive users first. And you can see if it's a user is a shared mailbox. If you don't see the shared, it means it's a normal mailbox. There's 4 ways to identify different entities here. You can say, just want to see the shared mailbox, or which users are active or deleted, which users do have a license. And there's also a difference between protected and unprotected. And that means that maybe you didn't select anything ever for that user, meaning that it just never counted as any protected user. So that's a very simple approach in the checks here, and in the right top, a very important addition, that it will automatically add your new users. I do run into customers who by default don't enable this, but I just don't know how you would manage this. If you disable it like this, how are you going to figure out that the new user, first of all, how are you going to figure out that the new user exists? And then are you sure you're going to make sure that it's going to be added properly as well? And how do you going to identify if it's an intern or the new CEO? It's just too complicated, I guess. So this is normally how we suggest to do it. Set and forget. Make sure your Exchange OneDrives are in. Make sure that the users are added. Next one is SharePoint. Doesn't work on users, but on sites. So it's going to show me an overview of all the sites that I have available, and I can do selections on sites. You can see there's 9 protected sites here. It's not the most important, interesting SharePoint environment, unfortunately, but you get the idea. And again, an option to add new sites to backup as well, to not forget about that. Then we have Teams support, and you can see the teams that were created. You can see the users that are in the teams, and you can also see the owners. The owners are the items that we count as licensed users, not the users itself. So this is how we identify if you would count for a license in Cove or not. And that brings us then into the total overview, where you can see your protected users. And you can see here the checkboxes for Exchange and OneDrive. Everybody who has a OneDrive checkbox is always going to be a billable user because that's a normal functionality, similar for SharePoint or for Teams. And you can see that even although everybody has access to the Teams site, only 2 people are being marked as an owner. But this check actually doesn't matter because they are already counting here or here. So it's just you're going to be billable or not billable. We don't have a layered approach where you're going to pay more or less for a light user. So you're going to pay or you're not going to pay. It's that simple. In this case, there's a shared mailbox that is actually billable because the Exchange component is here, but the OneDrive is still there. This was a converted mailbox, so maybe it has like, I don't know how many gigabytes of OneDrive data with so many years of retention, so we still have that. And if you convert a user to shared and you don't remove the OneDrive, you can, but if you don't, then we're going to keep it as a normal user. So we're going to give you a nice overview of this, and it's also going to be presented in your default system as all the numbers. Normally, this is really a set and forget type of thing. It will run, it will just go, and not a lot of things you need to do. I was speaking to somebody that is running a few hundred tenants with a competitive solution, and they were complaining so much about all the noise that it generates in their system with all the errors and all the warnings that it gives all the time. That is something we completely don't recognize. There is hardly anything that will give you any warning or error. Technically, there is a possibility that you will run into malware. That's definitely the case. Like it will happen at some point. So if Microsoft detects there's malware on the OneDrive or the SharePoint site or in your email, and we're trying to reach it, Microsoft is just forbidding us to go in there. We just can't simply get to the data, and we're going to give you a message saying, we can't access this file, malware was detected. And we're going to specifically say which file it is as well, for which user. That's the main thing that happens. If it would happen. By the way, I'm not saying that a lot of things happen at all. You will see a lot of this type of stuff, like green all over the place with very simple, small things, if that even would happen. So backups run. Now the customer says, I lost an email, something like that, and I need to do a restore. So you go into the system, you say right click, restore. Let's start with Exchange. I need to get into the tenant with the right credentials. And I didn't log in today, so I'll go into this tenant with this credentials. And there we go, and it's this one. Pick my phone here. Security for everything. There we go. Connected, and now I'm going to get an overview of the mailboxes that are restorable. So here we go. Let's pick my own user. You see, it was a regular user. This is the last backup that it did, very recent. Next, it does actually multiple backups per day. If I go to Monday, for instance, you see these are the backups that are all available for me. So let's say this moment, you can see my whole structure here. I can click on the inbox. I can search for emails. I can't see the email, very important. We can see from the subject and to and the date, and if it has some extra flags or attachment and all of that, that's it. There's nothing more we can see. And that's very important. We have a competitor that gives you the full thing, including everything. I'm like, how? Which security policy thought that was a good idea? So we have a folder suggestion where we're going to put it into a specific folder, but you can also choose to put it just in the original, which I think is most logical. Or you can redirect it into a new folder, and that's just going to give you a different space in your same user to do that. But most people just stick with the original. And if I do this, I can just say restore it. I can go into the job queue. There you see it's in the queue right now. If I refresh it, the queue is already empty. So that's nice. So go to history, 5-second restore. That's it. You can see the backups are also pretty fast, but the restore is also very fast. There's also another user interface, how to get to restores. You can also click here if you're in the tenant. And if I want to do a restore of OneDrive, that's the last one I'll show you. It's all very much alike. I'll connect to the same credentials, remembers me. It's nice. I only have one user with OneDrive, so that's why I only have one to select. So that's correct. I get a calendar, I get a time. OneDrive does backup 4 times a day and Exchange 6 times, so that's also on purpose. If I want to restore this specific file, again, I get an option to say different location, original or new. If I say this is the original location, I'll do this. And are you sure to do this? And I'm just going to restore it right now. So I can go into the job queue. This is a bit bigger file, so it's going to take a bit longer. But here I can refresh it, and this will process the file into my OneDrive again. And you can also go into history and see all of that happening. You can also go to audit and then see that I did the restore for Exchange in OneDrive as well. And that gives me the overview of the whole tenant, where you see multiple sessions per day, up to 6, up to 4, up to 4, up to 6, and 7-year retention by default, which is very decent service level, I would say. So that is a quick glance on the Microsoft 365 setup. It literally is a 2-minute setup on the tenant, and then it's set and forget and let it happen. And if the customer has a restore request, it's another 2 minutes for a restore that you need to do, and that's it. Any questions or remarks or anything? OneDrive also restored, by the way, in 34 seconds. So there you go. Feel free to speak up, no worries.
I was just wondering one thing regarding the recovery locations. Where you have Azure for now and also Hyper-V, but will we have something for VMware in the future?
Yeah, in the near future. I'm getting access to it next week.
Okay.
So very near future, yeah. It's not going to be released next week, but internally I'll get it, and I'm expecting it to come out in the first quarter of next year.
Oh, that sounds nice. Super.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we started. Our goal was to implement this specifically also for Azure, because the whole MSP space is obviously big in Microsoft. And going into Azure, Hyper-V is a more logical step to start with instead of VMware. But those two are done, and that's why we added the third one now. Yeah. Well, if there are no further questions, I hope that it was an informative session for you. That you picked up a few things on how N-able/Cove looks at the backup and recovery world. And I think that Simon already said in the introduction that we're more than happy to continue discussions.
Yeah, thank you very much.
My Swedish is not so good.
No, yeah, of course not. But your Dutch is, right?
My Dutch is pretty okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Well, thank you very much, JG. It was a very informative session. I believe from this point of view, it's very clear and straightforward. So hopefully, if this has caught your interest, please reach out to us. We can set up a private session, so to speak, with JG or anyone else at N-able, and obviously go through other parts and discuss that further on. Take it in Swedish, obviously, a Swedish crowd. Om det är några frågor, mejla gärna oss, antingen direkt till er kontaktperson på Gridheart, eller som sagt går bra att skicka till sales@gridheart.com också. Såklart bokar vi upp någonting. Ni kommer få ett samtal från oss här i närtid där vi stämmer av läget, givetvis. Jag hoppas som sagt att det varit givande i dagens webbinar. Vi kommer fortsätta på Gridheart att ha såna här kontinuerliga sektioner med våra leverantörer. Så att håll koll. Vi hör av oss, återkommer, och som sagt vi ser fram emot att hjälpa er på bästa sätt. När ni känner att ni vill titta på en ny tjänst eller gräva djupare i en befintlig tjänst som ni jobbar med. Så att tveka inte, vi finns här och jobbar gärna nära er, så att Stort tack dagens deltagande och på återhörande får man väl säga då. Så att ja, ha det så bra allihopa. Ses där ute. Yeah, that was the end of the final words from my side, JG.
Thanks,
Thanks
Simon.
once again,
Yeah.
thank you, and we appreciate your time. And hopefully we can get some sessions now going with a few of these partners. And obviously,
Daniel is typing. Daniel, you can also unmute if you want.
Oh, he left, I think, or
yeah, but still typing. It looks like
Okay. Perhaps he has a question to you, and obviously, if you want to get in touch with JG directly, then feel free. He's not a stranger. So if you have any questions directly to him, let us know. Or just reach out to him, so to speak. That's it. See you around.
See you later. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye bye.